Probably you're talking about SB 263, is that correct?
That could be on the table, sure.
Sure. Well, this was the bill that was signed back in July by our erstwhile conservative governor, Chris Sununu. He's been real good on guns. He's been real good on fiscal issues. More power to him for that, and we thank him for that. But, you know, our motto is thank them when they do right and then spank them when they do wrong. SB 263 was the bill that basically created transgender rights to bathrooms and locker rooms. And my school board immediately, upon the umbrance of one family with one child in a school district of over 1,000 kids, declared all bathrooms and all locker rooms to be gender neutral. In other words, they succumbed and used the language of the left to be able to coerce behavior and coerce speech and the very worst, coerce thoughts of everybody else. And I went to the school board meeting. I've posted up the video. And essentially what they have done is that they've chosen to raise up the rights of a transgender child over the rights of anybody else. And they picked and choose through SB 263 because in there's also age discrimination, sex discrimination, color discrimination, national background discrimination, religious discrimination. So what about the folks that believe that there are just only two genders because of deeply held religious beliefs? You're now discriminating against them. And the superintendent made it abundantly clear that it was reverse discrimination because if you remember how this whole movement started, it was by somebody who was transgender got upset that they were relegated to a single-user bathroom somewhere in their building or had to go to the nurse's office to use their bathroom and said that was discrimination. So what did the superintendent of Guilford do, Kirk Beitler? He put out an email announcing the policy right off the bat, which isn't even finished being written yet, and said, well, we have so many single-user bathrooms in the elementary school, and we have so many instances in the middle school and in the high school. If you feel uncomfortable with a transgender person in your regular multiple person bathroom or locker room, you can go use those facilities. My, aren't we spinning it right back to the beginning of the circle? And
shouldn't this be exact opposite? If they have put enough single-user bathrooms to cover people with disabilities, people needing to change babies, yeah, that happens in school too, or people who feel generally uncomfortable with public exposure, that perhaps the peculiar people that think there's something else ought to be using those and not the other way around.
I think his point is that, you know, let's use the blacks on the bus example. So for years, the colored Americans were forced to sit in the back of the bus. And somebody said, well, that's wrong, because it was wrong. And then we have Rosa Parks and everything else. And eventually everybody said, well, you can't do that. Well, this isn't the same situation. In this particular situation, what they're saying in Guilford is, okay, transgenders have to use the bathroom in the back of the bus. They can't use any other. The fix for that is that transgenders can use any bathroom and everybody else has to use the bathroom in the back of the bus.
Yeah. Well, I'm waiting for high school boys or high school girls to say, okay, well, we're all going to line up at each of these few single-user bathrooms, and we refuse to use, you know, all of the multiple-person bathrooms and locker rooms. In other words, basically haul out Saul Alinsky's tactic that was used at the Chicago airport so that all of his followers would rush into the bathrooms when large planes would land, forcing everybody running off the plane to find a bathroom, having to run even further before soiling themselves. And it was a very effective tactic because during the school day, as we all remember, you've got limited time to transit from one classroom to another. And if you can only use one bathroom, they've now done it to themselves. They also have forgotten that because age is also part of the anti-discrimination stuff, I can now go into the school, claim I'm a 17-year-old junior girl, and I can go into any bathroom or locker room that I want, and they can't stop me. I pointed this out to the Guilford School Board, and they just kind of stared at me in horror with deer light and headlights kind of look, saying, he can do that? Yes, because you failed to read the law, and the law was failed to be read by everybody else with the intent of, what will the law of unintended consequences work here? And then I've got several other constitutional issues with it, but I'll let somebody else talk first.
Well, and not only that, what are they going to do when they get the first inevitable case of rape from a predatory male being in the wrong bathroom? And let's face it, it's the men that are the predators, not because the feminazis say so, but because that's the way it works, whether they're predatory in the normal sense or predatory homos or what. It's usually the men with some kind of psychological problem that cause these issues.
Well, there's a part of it, too, of the new policy that basically says that brings pronouns into this whole thing as well, that every student has the right to be called by their name, regardless of whether the parents know or not. That's another issue, that the school isn't going to involve the parents and won't tell the parents what's going on in the school, but that every staff member or anything that goes on in the building, people have to use the pronouns that the student has said that they need to be done. So I'm supposed to, if I go into the school for some kind of vacation, be forced to use that person's preferred pronouns.
How the hell are you supposed to know that? Are they going to have name tags?
Well, I don't.
Like an NHTI?
I have no idea. Yeah, or what the left is doing on Twitter. His, her, whatever. Mine are going to be His Royal Majesty and Most Excellency that must be obeyed. But, if I'm going to be subject to that, that is coerced speech. Which
I have a suggestion.
Coerced behavior.
I think
Up
your pronoun.
Just call them all it and have done with it.
Your pronoun should be he who will call you whatever he damn well pleases.
That's true.
That's
but the grievance policy, and I've already put it up on an RSA 91A right to know demand, is it calls for, and if you continually do this, you will be considered in violation of this policy. The problem is that there's no stated penalty for being in violation, which means it's arbitrary and capricious. And right there, you've got a lawsuit that says, yep, up yours.
So basically, it's going to be a lawsuit factory like we predicted.
Yes, because I stood up in front of the school board, and I have it recorded that I am willing to be the manager of a crowdsourced gathering of funds to sue the Guilford School Board. And being a member of the Guilford Budget Committee, my first question really was, and by how much are you going to be upping your legal general ledger account number?
All right, let's get on to one more thing.
They didn't like that. They didn't like that either.
I bet they didn't, because I think
being on the budget committee, you can refuse to do that.
That was his point.
Starve their legal fund and let them go down jointly and severally.
Yeah, there's other problems with that with the budget law, but go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was going to see if Mike had one more topic because we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left. Mike? Anything?
Thinking, yes. Yeah. What about McCabe and the general lawlessness of the DOJ? So he appealed and lost his termination, and I think the way has been cleared for him to now be charged for his crimes they were. Excuse me. And he is on record as saying at the time when he was terminated that he's going to take other people down with him. So that's going to get really interesting. Just how much of a lawless mess is the FBI and DOJ? And is McCabe going to do that? Or are there other people that might be out to get him? Might it not be Arkansas this time? Who knows? But the man clearly committed crimes, lied under oath, was probably part of the fraudulent FISA submissions as well. and now, having lost his appeal of his termination, is in a position to be indicted for those lies. And I'm looking forward to the fireworks. You said Bill Barr was brilliant. I think he's letting this all play out. He's got his prosecutors and investigators at work, and in all good time. And if Trump's helping to orchestrate this, somewhere around October 2020, there's going to be fireworks like you've not seen since the 4th of July, 1776.
Well, John Durham, who is the prosecutor who is charged with investigating the investigation, I am sure has I can't wait to see what he's got. I know the IG has been trickling out information on his investigation into the investigation. And I think that, you know, it's going to be a little bit like the Acorn Breitbart videos where you'd get one and something would come out and everybody would go, no, that's just one. That's just that. Then the next week another one comes out. And it just keeps happening. And they still keep stepping in the same trap over and over and over again. And I can't imagine that isn't how the next 12 months is going to go. McCabe was clearly at the center of all this. If you've not spent any time listening to Dan Bongino's podcast, I highly recommend it. He worked for the Secret Service. He's written 2 books on this Russiagate thing. You can go back and look for podcasts that cover every single corner of this investigation in great detail, and it's well worth your time to check it out. We could never do it justice here. I just want to point you towards the right resource. But McCabe is a dirtbag, and I really do hope that they indict him and he turns state's evidence and he brings all those bastards down, because this was nasty. People don't even begin to realize how corrupt Obama's FBI and DOJ were and what they tried to do and what they did do and just how illegal it was.
Right, and there's more. You mentioned a very good resource there. You know, and you need to watch the work done by the DC Daily Caller News Foundation, and also by Victoria Tensing and Joe, name escapes me. But there are other
Sarah
lawyers
Carter, John Solomon, all great people to check out on this investigation.
Yeah. But there's more. The former Southern New York prosecutor, Andrew McCarthy, who writes for National Review, who helped to prosecute the Blind Sheikh, who believed that the DOJ and the FBI were in fact bastions of integrity. When this stuff started to go down, he didn't believe it could be possible. And he told his buddy Rush Limbaugh those same things. And as he started to investigate, he started to realize that not only was it possible, it was far worse than anything he could have imagined. He documented it. It reads like a spy thriller. It is called Ball of Collusion by Andrew McCarthy, writer for the National Review. Also highly recommended. And you probably can't get your hands on a hard copy right now. It's sold out for a while, but you can get your Kindle or Nook copy and download it and read it.
We got a couple more minutes left. Any cleanup we want to go over?
Cleanup.
Actually,
well,
I got something. Just wrote about it today, and it relates to FBI, and it relates to this whole lying thing. Valerie Plame is running for Congress in New Mexico in a D+8 district. All she can do is make herself lose, and she's running on Trump and Bush pardoning Scooter Libby, who was charged with a lot of different things, but all he really ended up getting indicted for was process crimes, for not being able to remember something the FBI had on paper that he apparently said 2 years ago. And so they basically arrested him and charged him, and he was convicted. And George Bush didn't completely exonerate him. He just removed the prison time. He left everything else in place. He was still guilty of a felony. He was still forced to pay the fine, which was something like $350,000. And all Trump did was say, well, you're not really a felon. I'm just going to get rid of that. And so Plame is running on these statements about how she was wronged by these presidents. And if she were to have made those statements 2 years ago in front of the FBI and was then brought forward with her current statements, she could be tried and charged with the same process crime that Scooter Libby was indicted for. Scooter Liberty. And so I think that's hilarious.
I think it's hilarious that Trump has belatedly pardoned a couple of the people that W didn't pardon, and I think that's wonderful. And yes, we can only hope for her to have a worthy opponent down there in New Mexico, and maybe we can say there was a Plame out.
All right, that might be all we can take for 1 week. We have pretty much used up an hour as promised, and hopefully this recorded properly, and Skip can toss it up there and I can go get it, and we'll have some audio tonight or tomorrow. And we'll be back next week to do it again. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and attention. Enjoy your evenings.
And you too.
Thank you. And for those viewing and watching, we're glad you joined us.
All right.
GrokTV.